So that's a good
you are saying that
commendation.
that statement in verse 16 by Peter saying,
Yes.
"You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." That frequency, Jesus
Yes.
identifies as the Father's frequency.
The
That
Father's
revelation has
frequency.
come from the Father. It's not something
Exactly.
you made up. It's not something you could have discovered by. It's not something you could
It's
discover
not
by
common
yourself.
sense.
It's not
It's
common
not
sense. It's not
smartness.
deduction. I saw this, I
Yeah.
saw that, so I put it together. He said, no,
It,
it's a revelation by the
yes.
Father to you. Hello and welcome to another edition of E-Life Class. I'm Adewale Adefuye. It's a pleasure to be with you today. And I've got with me my brother, my friend, that we've been doing this series. We have been looking at together for, it must be so many now. We've done over 20 in this series on manifestation of the Spirit. So please make feel welcome, Saint Segun Peter. How are you, Segun?
I'm doing good. Thank you very much. Hello everybody. I'm glad to be back here again. To continue on this exciting journey.
Good. I mean, we've been looking at this 1 Corinthians chapter 12 for a while now, and we don't seem to
Yes.
exhaust it. But again, we'll have to continue until we're able to go through all the 9 manifestations of the Spirit. I mean, it's always good to start from verse 1. It says now, reading from BSB, about spiritual gifts. And it's something we've covered and talked about on numerous occasions. It's not gifts, really. It's just talking now about the spiritual, about life in the Spirit. Brothers and sisters, brethren, I do not want you to be uninformed. That's Paul, making that very clear that he doesn't want any one of us to be uninformed. And we've said it again and again that to be uninformed seems to be a choice because provision has been made for our education in the things of the Spirit. Verse 1. And then we've covered that. And then it goes on to say in verse 7, now to each one, the manifestation of the Spirit is given for the common good to each one. And we know, and we've said it again, and we can't overemphasize it, to each one in the body. To each one in the body, the manifestation of the Spirit is given, and it is for common good. So you might have to listen to some of the episodes in the past to see what you have said about this, to emphasize this, that to each one. So if you are in Christ, don't rule yourself out, because here it is clearly written, now to each one, the manifestation of the Spirit is given for the common good. Then in verse 8, it goes on to list all these manifestations of the Spirit. Now we are in verse 10, which says, to another, the working of miracles, which we have covered, to another, prophecy, which we have covered, to another, where we're looking at distinguishing between spirits. Now, I like, growing up with King James and New King James, you have the expression, instead of distinguishing between spirits, it talks about discerning of spirits. Discerning of spirit. ESV puts it this way, distinguish between spirits. So that's the manifestation of the Spirit, that, to distinguish between spirits. And I think the definition is that the gift of discerning of spirit, this manifestation, is the ability to recognize whether something is truly from God or not. To know the Spirit that is at work in situations. Or whether it's aligned with his righteousness, and it goes beyond judging moral choices. It's something that involves deep spiritual sensitivity that helps us to identify false teachings, deceiving spirits, and temptations.
Yes.
Just like in 1 John 4:1 that says, do not believe every spirit. We are told not to believe every spirit. That something appears supernatural does not mean it is necessarily of God.
Yes, which is very true. And we see both discerning whether something is of God, and also discerning when something is from God or of God, and discerning also when something is not from God and of God. We have that example when Jesus was speaking to Peter, and he demonstrated both at the same instance. on the one hand, he was asking the disciples, Mark chapter 8, and also in Matthew, the synoptic the Gospels, and he was asking them, who do you say I am? And Peter gave a response that Jesus was able to discern is of God, and say, flesh and blood has not revealed this to you. And should I say, unfortunately, down in the same passage, another scenario played out. It was talking about his eventual death, resurrection, persecution, and then we have the record that Peter took him aside and was rebuking him, and he discerned yet again that now you are on another frequency. If I can use this the contemporary term, you are speaking or listening or transmitting signal that is not of God and is of Satan.
Maybe a good idea to, instead of to open it up. I know you're talking about Matthew 16, and also
Yes.
I think it's also in Mark as well. But I remember clearly in Matthew 16. Maybe you want to take us through that slowly, because for the benefit of Andre, the young man who got saved about 18-20 months ago, it's important to go through this slowly, because you're talking about different frequencies and all that. What was the previous frequency? And there was this other frequency that is different from that which expired, which was that came before.
Yeah, so in Matthew chapter 16, verse 13, the Bible says that when Jesus came into the coast of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, whom do men say that I, the Son of Man, am? So he was asking for feedback. He wanted to know how people perceived him. And then verse 14, and they said, some say that you are John the Baptist, and some says Elijah, and others Jeremiah, or one of the prophets. Now he said unto them, verse 15, but whom say ye that I am? And the key verse, the first aspect of that discernment we're looking at, and Simon Peter answered and said, thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God. And Jesus answered and said unto him, blessed art thou, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood hath not revealed it unto you, but my Father which is in heaven. So Peter gave a response that Jesus was, so when I was talking about frequencies and all, he gave a response that Jesus was able to discern that this is of God, this is from the heart of the Father. This is the truth, but it's not just you speaking the truth. You probably don't even know that truth until it was delivered, revealed to you. So it is not a product of mental gymnastics or cogitation. This was given to you. So he said, flesh and blood has not revealed it unto you. So it was revealed unto you, but my Father which is in heaven. So that's a
you are saying that statement in verse 16 by Peter, yes, saying, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. That frequency, Jesus, yes, identifies as the Father's frequency. That revelation has come from the Father. It's not something you made up. It's not something you could have discovered by. It's not something.
It's not common sense.
It's not common sense. Smartness. It's not deduction. I saw this, I saw that, so I put it together. He said, no, it's a revelation by the Father to you. And he said, it's not flesh and blood. It's not something you pick up in physics lab or chemistry lab or physiology class.
Exactly. And he said that, and he didn't just tell us where it's not from, which is that it's not from flesh and blood. He also said where it was from, but my Father, which is in heaven, has revealed it unto you. Now that was a wonderful commendation from Jesus to Peter, but it was, even though it was a revelation that was delivered through Peter, it could be distinguished or separated from Peter, because we will see later down the line that the same Peter also transmitted another frequency. Remember, when we're looking at these manifestations, when we're looking at the word of wisdom and the word of prayer, we were careful to say it is not that you are given wisdom, you were given a word of wisdom.
Correct.
It wasn't that you were given knowledge unending. It was word of knowledge.
A fragment of God's wisdom, a fragment of God's knowledge.
For that
because
circumstance.
No one can handle the whole of God's knowledge.
Of God's knowledge. It's limitless.
It will collapse. It will crash and crush any human system.
It is infiniteness. And then, so, in the same way, when we're looking at discernment, he said, this was revealed unto you. So there are so many things that are not yet revealed, and that is why it's a manifestation. So in this case, when Peter got the revelation, I wouldn't say he was even looking for it, and I wouldn't say that there was any vote or any. It was the Father that chose, because he could just have said, "I think you are Jeremiah. I know you will give us the real answer," and kept his peace. So, in that wise, you wanted to say something, sir?
No, because you said it wasn't like. I guess it was the question Jesus asked at that point that provoked the receptor, in Peter and the disciples that allowed the revelation to land, And I say that if you look at the Gospels, many times Jesus is always asking questions. He asks questions a lot, So, and questions tend to provoke revelation.
Yes, it opens us up. It makes us perhaps even more teachable, curious.
Yes,
more
curiosity.
So when you open up your heart to actually seek an answer, as opposed to being a closed book and a statement, so it stimulates that process. But thank God, Peter was able to tune into that frequency, and we had that revelation. And there was such a powerful revelation.
We're not sure whether he tuned in or God broke through. It was a Kairos moment, no doubt.
Yes, God broke through.
And God just broke through. Boom. There's a question there.
Yes.
And you could see some other promises by Jesus Christ, where he says, when you are brought before your persecutors and all that, he said, don't worry about what you say. Don't worry about what you say. Why? Because
just
God will break through.
Mouth. And
just then see it later on. We'll probably be looking at it in another manifestation, which is tongues and various tongues. It's God breaking through.
Yes.
Because we are finite beings.
Yes.
And there's this longing of eternity in each and every one of us. And God, who has put the longing in us, has also made a provision for that longing to be satisfied. And so when the right questions, the way I look at it, when questions are asked, there's something, even if you don't know the answer, there's something that stirs up something within you. Oh, if only. So Jesus says, I've heard you say who people are. People call me, I'm Jeremiah, I'm this and that. How about you?
Yes.
And they're
that's wonderful. And we see, the way I see it is like two manifestations. Peter, the one giving us what I would say a word of knowledge about the real identity of this man that people call fisherman, the son of Joseph. But Peter gave a word of knowledge as to his real identity. And Jesus demonstrating the manifestation of discernment to know that this revelation is of God. It was such a wonderful revelation that Jesus went on to say in verse 18 that upon this, I say this unto thee, thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail. So it must have been quite a happy gathering, quite a cheerful. The master asked questions, we got it, everybody is fine. Then he made declaration and promises. Verse 19,
but before you go on to verse 19, I know it's not what we are looking at today, but it's good to say something about verse 18. He says, I tell you, you are Peter, and on this rock, there are those who believe that Peter means pebble, like rock. That the foundation of the church was laid on Peter, and I respect that, but it's comical in a sense. It's laughable in the sense. How
Yeah.
can God? Because in another place we read of Jesus Christ, he said, knowing what was in man, he did not put his trust or
His
weight on
trust
man.
is
So
yes.
he who will not put his confidence or his weight on man, how will then believe foundation on man? So I think it's important to emphasize that the rock here, what is Jesus is building
No, we
foundation
even
of the
have
church on,
this.
is
We even
the
have the
revelation
yes,
of
yes.
that which
That's
the
the
Father has revealed through Peter.
in the previous verse. Yes.
Yeah, I think it's good to say to just
We even have it in
identify that.
scripture. You know the I think it was Paul that wrote. He said that now there is no other foundation that
Yeah,
can be laid except that which has been laid,
yeah,
which is Christ. And Christ is the chief. Imagine saying that Peter is the rock that Christ who came to like you said, with all due respect to the person, the ministry, the grace on Peter, and when he was here, that revelation is what the church is built on, and it is consistent with the letter, with the spirit, and with the wisdom of scriptures from Genesis to Revelation.
yeah. And what you're going to say later on, because we are looking at discernment, I know you want to talk about another frequency on which Peter quickly, I won't say tuned to or opened himself
Yeah.
to. So that just makes it dangerous to have a human being who at one moment received a revelation from the Spirit of God, and the next moment he becomes a spokesman for the adversary to be the foundation of the church.
Yeah, actually, I think that Peter is a picture of us, and that we also, what Peter lacked was what Jesus had at that moment. Because the real thing wasn't that Peter said those two things. It was that Peter could not discern before he blotted them out or proclaimed them or agreed with them. Actually, I believe that right now, even today, there's a battle raging in our souls as Christians, as sons of God, whereby, just like with Peter, God is beaming his revelations by his Spirit, and the devil, and he also has his own agenda, and it's also beaming those realities. And when some thoughts land, we should be able to tell. Because if we don't we're looking at only at this from the level of 1 Corinthians 12, the manifestation of the Spirit. There's actually the common, like we talked about how faith, there's common faith. We talked about how wisdom, there's common, but if before we go to this level of special discernment as a manifestation of the Spirit, there's a level of discernment that every believer ought to have, wherein that we can tell the thoughts. For instance, if I have a misunderstanding with someone, and I have an opportunity to greet the person, and then I have this rationalization in my mind that no, he offended me, I'm older. Those thoughts seem logical, but a discerning Christian would know that they are not of God. Now, that is not the special manifestation of the Spirit that we're talking about here now, but you would know that what some other people will say is normal now. If somebody does something to you, do your own back. You are not a fool. It sounds logical. It sounds like self-preservation. But there's a level of discernment where you look at something that appears normal, logical, even mathematical, and you're like, this is not of God.
I like what you've just said there, and I think I'm going to run with that. That's
Yes, sir.
low level discernment.
Yes, sir.
And I think you see it all over scriptures. But what
Yes.
comes to mind right is in Galatians chapter 5, where Paul begins by saying, look, these are the works of the flesh. And he says before then, he said the flesh lust after the spirit, and the spirit lust after the flesh. And these two are in constant combat. And then it goes on to say, the acts of the lust of the flesh are 1, 2, 3. It goes on and on and on. And then, the moment he finishes that, he now says, but the fruit of the Spirit is this.
Yes.
So I'm hearing you now, and you say this is Galatians 5 is low level discernment.
Exactly. That
Low
is
level, which
common to all.
everyone will be operating in. Like the example you've just said, somebody, let's make it more graphical. Somebody slaps you on one cheek, you turn the other cheek. Or you probably might not even be. How do we say it now? You might withdraw from the pump of grace so that it stops supplying grace to turn the other cheek.
Yes, but
because
and
the
then
moment
somebody
you're
will like, yes,
you're like, what do you mean?
and there's this there's what you will do and say that you will appear justified.
Yeah.
That people will be like, no, that's self-defense.
Yeah.
You understand? Like a debate, I was okay. That not necessarily even talking about Christian conversation, just pure civility, where somebody was saying that a lady struck a man and that the man strike back. Actually, we talk about it in terms of not divorcing our Christian life from our workplace encounters, from our domestic encounters, from our commercial involvement. You can't live your Christianity at home or in church. Things happen in the bus. Things happen at the station. Things happen in the mall. Things happen, and you must be a Christian at all times. Jesus did not say you should only. In fact, at the point, he said that, well, how are you different if you only greet the people that greet you and do the good? So we are Christians. We are either Christians or we are not. Period.
There's a saying that in uniform, whether in uniform or out of uniform, an officer is an officer in the military.
Exactly.
So the same thing. So we can say the same thing. Whether you're in a church building or not, a Christian should be a Christian.
Period. And
in the day, in the night, weekend and weekday.
I really believe that that level of discernment to begin to judge and to modulate our inner dialogues, because before these things become actions, words, spoken words, actions, reactions, they are first thoughts, they are first inner dialogues, and then whichever one we decide or we opt to platform, to give a platform for, that is what the world will now see on display. So that is the basic common level of discernment. The Bible was saying in James about wisdom that is from above as opposed to that is from beneath.
Okay, let me get you back to finish your thoughts on Matthew 16. Because you were talking about Peter being
yes.
Symbolizing almost every believer.
Yes, all of us.
At one point, God burst in by his revelation, and then that's when the thought stopped. And then I think you are going to get into verse 19. Well, 19, 20.
We were looking at how Peter symbolizes us, and how there are many things that go on inside our hearts, and there's a common level of discernment with which you should be able to tell that thought is not of God, and you neuter that thought, and you even combat that thought with scriptural godly thoughts. And so you have been able to discern and refuse to voice, to vocalize, or to demonstrate whatever that thought is, because you know it's not of God. But in this case now is a special revelation about the nature, the person and the nature and the ministry of Jesus. And Peter probably did not even know the import of what he just said. It took the discernment in Jesus to tell us the importance. More like, you guys, do you know what you just heard now? Did you know what just happened here and now? And then, of course, in verse 20, he just told us that he was going to build on that revelation. So he continued to build on that revelation. And then in verse 20, then charged he, his disciples, that they should tell no man that it was Jesus the Christ. From that time forth, began Jesus to show unto his disciples how he must go unto Jerusalem and suffer many things of the elders and chief priests and scribes, and be killed and be raised again the third day. And the Bible says, then Peter took him and began to rebuke him. I like this. I want to say this before we even go further. First of all, when the revelation came from the Father, the Bible didn't record, and the Father told Peter. It just said, and Peter said. In this way, the Bible did not say, and Satan, it just said, and Peter took him and began to rebuke him, saying, be it far from thee, Lord, this shall not be unto thee. And but Jesus turned and said unto Peter, get thee behind me, Satan. Thou art an offense unto me, for thou severest not the things that be of God, but those things that be of man.
Let me read that from PSB in front of me. But Jesus turned and said to Peter, get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me, for you do not have in mind the things of God, but the things of men.
Awesome. It reminds me of when we were looking at sermon by Jesus, how the apostle did not just call out his offense, but went on to describe the machinations of his heart. What was in his mind? That you have allowed this to enter your heart, you have allowed that to enter your heart. Jesus did not just say, get thee behind me, Satan. He explained so that both Peter, the disciples, and all of us generations later can understand exactly what happened there. He said that you do not savour the things that are of God, but those things that are of men. So that means that this frequency is opposite. This frequency is from Satan. What you have said may sound normal. It might even appear like you are speaking out of concern for me, my welfare, my well-being, my safety, that out of all the other disciples, you are the one that cares. That no. But if you savour the things of God, you would have known that. In fact, if you look at the Matthew 21 that Peter was responding to, Jesus did not stop at and be killed. He went on to say, and be raised again the third day. So, if it was for my concern, I've already stated that I will not just die, but I will also rise again.
I won't stay dead.
I won't stay dead. So, it's something exciting. It's like saying, I have an exam, and after that, I'm graduating. It's not a dread. You don't dread your finals after all this while, because you know what comes after finals. So for you to be saying this, it is not a mere thought. It is not concern. It is not love. It is not care. It is actually Satan using this opportunity to dissuade me from my God-given mission. Now, that's discernment again on display. This time, being able to discern what is not of God, what is from Satan. Previously, it was what was of God. And this exemplifies for us how it can be a regular, normal conversation that whoever that the Spirit of God has opted to grant the grace, this manifestation, it can be in a conversation. It doesn't have to be a special service, somebody is being thrown down, heaving and making. It's just a conversation. If you are open and or if he said he giveth every man severally as he wills, if he has opted that this people, these individuals in the local assembly, single them out from this manifestation, that means that their benefit to the body is to help us at critical junctions to discern the difference between good and God, not just evil and good. There are things that appear good, but they are not God.
I mean, like the example we've seen here, it shows concern for Jesus, because Jesus says he's going to the cross and all that, and Peter says, God forbid, that won't happen to you. And Jesus says that's coming from the adversary, that's coming from Satan, Exactly. So it might look cool on the surface. It might be self-preserving on the surface, and it's coming from the pit of hell.
Yes, and that is why that gift is needed in the body, in the local assembly, because we can have it in this generation. Maybe the Lord will have the church or the pastor or the denomination take on a project or something, and somebody in the council of elders or somebody in the church are, wow, we can't afford that. No. And then somebody is able to pick that this is not just doing SWOT analysis. There is more to this. There is more to this, and discern and
SWOT analysis, strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats. Just go to highlight that just in case Andre is wondering what that means.
What that means, yes. So we're able to tell many well-meaning counsel. If anybody was with the 3 Hebrew boys, would have told them, just bow. Nobody, you're already in Babylon.
Why do you want to expose yourself to such danger? Are you the only one? Look at this, everyone else is bowing and all that. Well, remember where you're coming from. We are in a foreign land, let's just keep your heads low and all that, So I think it's important, like you've said, this example you have given of discerning of spirit by Jesus is clearly identifies that it's like in the same conversation.
Yes.
There's this revelation by God, and there's this interference by the adversary in the same conversation. And Jesus clearly identifies the spirit at work in each of these. Peter says, you are the Christ, and Jesus says, that's a revelation of the Father, not even flesh and blood made that open to you. And now, the same breath, Peter says, you are not going to the cross, and Jesus says, that is coming from Satan.
In fact, it's like, let me give this conversation, this example. Someone is telling his wife, he says that, I love you, I will do anything for you, I will go any extent for you. And that sounds good. And in the same statement says, but I will not take any disrespect. Oh. If you love someone, you don't encourage them to disrespect. But love means, should they peradventure disrespect, there is a response of love. Because Jesus, when he was reviled, he did not revile back. So love is not loving lovables. Love is not loving people because they acted right. Love is loving people. So the first half of the conversation of the sentence looked wonderful, romantic even. The second half, like, my brother, I think you need to revisit what you understand by love. Yeah. Love is sacrifice. One statement.
Continue this, but I think we will do that in the next episode. I'm not sure we can cover this manifestation of the Spirit in terms of discernment in just this episode. I know we've covered one or so in the past, but we'll have to continue this in another episode. So until we come your way again, this is E-Life Class.
Thank you for listening to E-Life Class. Has God spoken to you through this session? So what are you going to do about it? Remember, God loves you as you are, and this life is best lived on His terms and conditions. And if you like what you've just heard, do share it with friends and family, neighbours and colleagues. Thank you, and God bless you.